Now, as President Trump continues to deal with an insurrection in the White House, Republican lawmakers are looking to crush dissent in their own house. Now, Representative Austin Scott had earlier pitched an idea to the House Steering Committee. Now, that is the House Republican Steering Committee. Apparently, they make appointments to different committees within the Republican House. So they decide who's going to sit on what committee, and who gets those really, really good, really important appointments. Now, Scott said, "Hey, here's an idea. We need to punish Republicans who do not vote among party lines or sign discharge petitions." Now, those are very important things. I'll explain what that is. But that's going to matter a lot, especially considering some of the contentious legislation and really how close some of the legislation actually gets to passing. Now, the resolution would require the steering committee to review whether changes should be made to a lawmaker's committee assignments if they vote against a rule, which sets the stage for a floor debate on legislation and is almost always passed along party lines. If they support a discharge petition, which is a tool to force floor votes with 218 signatures and circumvent leadership. Now, there is one thing that the leadership does not like, and it's when you bypass them. Now, not only that, but this rule would actually force committee chairs to either vote on this legislation, right? Vote with the party, or lose their leadership. Gone. You are gone. Out. You're not going to vote with the party? You're not going to vote lockstep with us? Say goodbye to your committee chair appointment. Step out of line, you're going to be in big, big trouble. Can it be more clear that this is a Republican attempt to crush dissent in their ranks? Now, let me go to a quote here from John Shimkus, right? Now, John Shimkus is a member of the steering panel, and he talked to the Hill and he told them there'd be an ability to say, if this passes, we believe that you're on a committee, not a committee, but a committee. We expect a little more out of folks. That would then start the process of saying, you can vote however you want, but maybe you should reconsider the committee that you're on. Oh, do whatever you want, but boy, it sure would be a shame if you had a vote that didn't agree with us or that we don't agree with and lost your committee assignment. Sure hate for that to happen to you, buddy. Better vote with us. The message is, we're coming for you. Toe the party line, or else. Basically, there will be no more Mavericks. There will be no dissent. We are done with that. Fascinating. Now, the reason that they're looking at this in the run-up to the midterms is they actually want to control not some of their more extreme members. Now, again, this would kind of make sense if, hey, the party establishment is tired of these, far-right, crazy people driving us to legislation that is never going to pass, that makes us look terrible. I could understand if they were doing this for that reason. But they're actually doing it for the opposite reason. They actually want to corral some of their more centrist Republican members. Earlier this year, Scott had stood up during a GOP conference meeting and called on leadership to punish lawmakers who signed discharge petitions or vote against rules, two Republican sources told The Hill at the time. So this isn't the first time he's come up with this. However, Scott's push came in response to an insurgent effort from centrist Republicans who were trying to force a series of contentious immigration votes on the House floor using a discharge petition. The moderate lawmakers had also threatened to torpedo a rule that would bring a conservative immigration bill from House Judiciary Committee Chairman Bob Goodlatte to the floor, unless they also got a guaranteed vote on moderate immigration legislation. Now, that legislation, the Goodlatte bill, was incredibly draconian, incredibly conservative. So these moderate House members are like, okay, if that's what you're going to go with, well then introduce it. Oh, you don't want to introduce it because it's horrible? Well, we've got a bill that we think is a little bit better, and is still, of course, in my opinion, as a progressive, still draconian, but less so than the Goodlatte bill. So the centrists, they're like, okay, we're just going to force this we're going to force ourselves to vote for this. We'll see how much support it actually has in the House. So there's some big infighting going on. Now, as I said before, most of the immigration bills to come out of the Republican House, again, are incredibly draconian. However, there are some, but not a lot, but some Republicans who aren't quite as draconian and might actually work with Democrats to get some sort of immigration reform. Is it everything we want as progressives? Absolutely not. But look, if we can get something like protecting the Dreamers, which are still not, protected, or giving people a pathway to citizenship, and in return, we got to put a few billion towards border security. Look, that's something that I could actually live with, right? Because look at what we get in return. We would get something that's actually a lot better for, as I said, a few wasted billion that we could, yes, definitely use somewhere else on border security. Right. Look, and the reason I say I could live with that is because we've seen far worse pieces of legislation come out of the House. And look, to be fair, in their insatiable greed and stubbornness, the fringe right has actually stopped some of the worst legislation from making it through the House. It's not because they opposed it. No, it's because it was too strong. No, they opposed it because it wasn't strong enough. It wasn't draconian enough. And so they used their power to do a little insurgency against the leadership, and they ended up sabotaging their own bill. So that's interesting. Now, there's more. Turns out there were also some disagreements on the first ACA repeal bill, as well as the tax cut law. Well, that's fascinating. Here you had Representative Rodney Frelinghuysen, who's a Republican from New Jersey. He's also chairman of the House Appropriations Committee. So this is somebody who has a very powerful position inside of the Republican House. Now, he opposed the party's initial ACA repeal bill, as well as the tax cut law. He was not in favor of that. Now, I think that's fascinating. Now, look, under this rule, here you would have Frelinghuysen, who did not vote party line on these two pieces of legislation. He could possibly lose his committeeship. And in fact, Republican leaders actually wanted to do that. Politico reported that last December, but it turns out they never actually ended up pulling the trigger. And the chairman himself announced his retirement in January. So that means they could put someone else who was far more conservative up for that Appropriations Committee spot. So that's interesting. Okay. Now, will this happen? I don't know. Look, from what I've read, Paul Ryan, he's not exactly interested in it. Look, Paul Ryan, compared to John Boehner, who did go after and who did use the leadership and their speakership to punish dissidents, has a bit of a soft touch. So, but once Paul Ryan steps down, as he is going to, who knows what's going to happen? We could end up seeing Speaker Kevin McCarthy. We could end up seeing Speaker Mark Meadows, who's head of the Freedom Caucus. Could you imagine that? Disaster. That is, of course, unless the Democrats win back the House, in which case, Speaker Pelosi. Oof. Still better. Still better than Kevin McCarthy or anybody the Republicans could put up. But, of course, that's why I would love to see at least a blue wave, even if we end up getting stuck with Pelosi. Ugh. Primaries, man. Pelosi was challenged in a primary. Didn't work out, but you can always challenge her again. But anyway, as far as the story is concerned, it's pretty clear that the Republicans want to clamp down on members that don't vote the party line. Now, again, this is the House Republicans, so I don't know if they're going to try to adopt anything like that in the Senate, or even if they can. But if they did, well, that would go after people like Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski. These are people that do buck the leadership sometimes when it counts. So it's a way to try to excise the party of some of its more moderate members. And at this point, with the Republicans so incredibly right wing, that is not a good thing. Now, I'm not saying that these people are our allies, but the people who replace them could be far, far worse. So, and if this effort to punish people succeeds and we don't have a check on Congress, things could be real bad. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.